Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Dude, I Love That. I'm Liv, and today we're continuing the Summer Throwback Enneagram series with a movie that is most known for its fashion and one-liners, Clueless. And this is really cool because my mom actually was working at Paramount when this movie came out, and so she got to see it before anybody else at the lot. And it was just like really cool to be able to be like, Mom, I'm doing an episode on this. This is so fun. Obviously, this movie's so iconic for millennials, but it was just like a little extra special. And as usual, we're just doing main characters for this episode. There's a lot of people we could have hit on, but this one is just main characters. So let's go ahead and jump in with Cher. This is kind of one of those characters that I've seen people throw her type around before, and I've seen usually it's type 3. However, I'm going to counter that and we are going to dive in. Now, I actually typed her as a 7. And the reason being is, and I want to talk about her tri type because I think that's going to be really important in this for getting an overall sense of who she is. And if you've never heard me talk about tri type, go back and listen to the last episode because I really do a quick, great brief overview of tri types. I think it was like the quickest one I've ever done. So go check that out. But with Cher, a lot about her, she loves fashion. She loves things that are more like aesthetic. And so someone could easily be like, oh, that's very 3-ish. Like she's into the designers and she's into looking and appearing a certain way. However, there's really a lot more to her than just that. And I think it would be kind of silly for us just to be like, oh, she's into fashion, she's a 3. I literally just did a whole post on that on Instagram a few weeks ago about how, like, if they like pop culture and fashion and beauty, that does not make them a 3. Like there's a lot more that goes into being a type. And, conversely, there's a lot more to a person than just liking those things. I mean, I like those things and I'm not a 3. So, that goes to show you. However, with Cher, the fun thing about her is that you can see she's very much a head type. I feel like when we're in the school with her while she's doing the debate and like seeing that, and also seeing how she goes about situations when she's trying to raise her grades, she's not afraid of a debate. She's not afraid about using her powers of persuasion to get what she wants. And it's not even in like this nasty, like seedy kind of way where you're like, ooh, that's not the greatest. She does it in a way that is actually quite wholesome because she is able to bring good arguments to the table. And sometimes they're silly, like 100%. Like the one when she's in PE, that one's silly. However, we do see that there are many times where she's able to come up with really great ideas and put them into action, which is usually the hard part, right? You have an idea and you're like, I want to do this thing, but actually putting it into action can be a little bit tougher. And of course, we see her where she's like, Ty obviously doesn't have any friends. She's new. I want to take her under my wing. And I feel like we see with Cher a lot that she has a good balance of her wings, right? Because as a 7, she'd have a 6 wing and an 8 wing. And I feel like a lot of times we see her using the 8 in order to, like I said, persuade people. And also she's good at taking people under her wing and protecting them. And it's really easy when you go to a new school to be like bullied or something like that. But she's like, I'm not going to let that happen with her. I'm going to step in and I'm going to make sure that she's okay and feels welcome. Of course, Cher's so quick-witted, which is huge. And I feel like people kind of neglect the fact that 7s are very witty, and because their brains working so quickly, because remember, as a 7, they have a connection to 5 and 1. And so they've got a lot of that, brain power, I guess, brain power. They're like a double head type. And so they're using that a lot and they're good at thinking on their feet and following through. Now, the other thing of why I really think that she's a 7 is because, like I said, 7 has a connection to type 1. And I feel like what we see with Cher is that she really is part of that idealist triad. And she does want what she thinks is the best or the most ideal or the most perfect it can be. And she's always striving for that. We see that in her outfits. We see that in her relationships. We also see, there's the one scene where she's like, oh my gosh, wait, what's that guy's name? I feel like his name's like Tony or something. What is his name? The guy that she sees coming to the school and she's like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. And then he ends up turning out to be gay. And she's like, oh, never mind. I'm just going to go shopping with him. So I feel like for her, when she's having a conversation with Dionne in the car and she's like, oh my gosh, I almost was intimate with this dude. Like, I wasn't really thinking that through. Like, this is actually there. It's more complex than this. And I need to think about this. And she really is someone that is thinking things through and going, how can I get to the most ideal situation with what I have? And even sometimes, let me think of the most ideal thing that maybe isn't attainable, but I'll figure out the closest way to get there. And last but not least, she's really great at holding her own. Again, she leans on that 8 wing a lot. And I feel like with her, because she does have a connection to 1 as a type 7, she's really great at arguing her side of the story and also being very justice oriented. We see at the end of the movie, she's helping with the Pismo Beach cleanup or disaster relief, whatever it's called. And she's really great at just like putting her words into action and showing up for people and trying to be as helpful as she can with what she has. And it might look different than other people. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, Cher's like, an airhead and she's just kind of oblivious and she's all about herself. But that's not the case at all. She's got so much going on. And also, her way of helping people looks like, hey, you need a makeover, or let me bring you into my fold with, my friends, because then you'll automatically be popular. And let me, do something that lends itself to being actually like a practical, helpful thing instead of just like, oh, let me, give you directions to like such and such classroom. And so it does look different for her, but that's one thing I don't want to negate. I think a lot of times it's easy to overlook people being helpful in that way. But remember, as a head type, that's what you're going to see more from the fives, sixes, and sevens that are in the head triad. And I know for me, that's how I help people. I really am like, okay, well, what's something practical I can help you with that's actually going to give you some substance versus just like, oh, I'll bake you a cake. That's just sort of how we think, because it's like we're always searching for the most practical thing. Some people are searching for the most ideal. We're searching for the most practical. And so that's what I feel like Cher does. And she's so good at it. And the fun thing about being a seven is that you are always looking at things glass half full. You're able to really turn things around on a dime when situations go south. You're like, there's something we can pull from this that's actually positive. And so that's what we see with her all the time. And she has a very seven front. She's able to get out of funks quickly because remember, the seven does not like sitting in uncomfortable feelings. And so I think we see that all the time for her. And that's why I really do think that she's a seven and not what other people have said, which is like a three or a two. Now, let's talk about her tri-type because I think that's so important here. So, I actually do think she has a 2 in her tri-type. I think she's extremely helpful. Now, the thing here is I think she's really similar to Emily from Emily in Paris. I did a whole episode on that, so check it out. But I think for her, she has a similar thing to Emily where she's like the social 2 that uses their influence and their ability to convey a message for the greater good. And so I think that's what we see her doing, especially with Ty and with Dionne and giving advice. I think 2s are really good, and especially the social 2. I think they're really great at using their 2 powers. And that like goes, there's so many things I can get into about 2s, but as I'm trying to just keep this short, I feel like the 2 is really great at being that person that can give advice and is going to help you in the way that they can emotionally. But because she has that 7 as part of her, or as her core type, excuse me, I feel like we're seeing this really interesting balance of emotions and, being in the head. And then as part of the gut triad, I would say she's most likely an 8 because I don't really see a whole lot of 1 with her. And she's definitely not got any 9. So again, I think she's really good at arguing. She's good at getting her way. She's good at seeing situations and seeing where she can have an in, which is a very 8 thing. So again, I think that she's a type 7, and I think she uses both of her wings equally. So she's got a good 6 wing, a good 8 wing, and I think her tri-type is a 7-2-8. And of course, we can't have Cher without Dionne. And I freaking love her. She's hilarious. I don't know who the girl is that plays her, but she's so pretty. And I decided that she is a type 3. And I chose that for her because not only is she so loyal, which I always try and highlight about 3s because I feel like people often overlook that and they are like, oh, well, the 6 is the loyalist. So they kind of have this singular grip on loyalty. But remember, 6, 3, 9, they all have connections to each other, and all those types are very loyal. Now, with Dionne, she's very blunt and she's really good at just being like, look, I want to do this. We're going to go over here. And there's something about her, and I do not say this in a bad way, but she is self-focused in the sense that she's like, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not. And I'm not interested in doing things that I'm not good at or that I don't want to do and like waste my time, which in essence can feel very 8ish. And that's why, again, people tend to mistype the 3 and the 8. But the thing with Dionne is that she's definitely someone that enjoys her relationships, and she's kind of always like, I want to have fun. I want to do things. I don't think she's quite as focused or future oriented as the 8. And so, again, that's why I feel like she's got more of that 3 in her. She's super loyal to Cher and even her boyfriend, which she says several times. She's like, "You're annoying me. Get out of here." But you know what? She kind of loves the back and forth with him. And that's what I think is so funny about her, because a lot of girls probably would have been like, "I'll just break up with you." Like, she's so cool and pretty. She's like, "I can get anyone I want," but she stays with him because I think she really does get a kick out of him. And I think they have this really funny back and forth relationship that she enjoys and is entertaining to her. And so that's why she probably stays in it. Plus, of course, she likes him. And then the other thing that I feel like really solidified her type for me was when they go to that party in the valley, which, fun fact, I used to live in the valley. So I guess you could say, in a sense, I'm a valley girl. And for her, she walks into that party and she is like on, she just walks right in there and totally fits in. And that's what I always highlight about those 3s. They're so good at molding to any situation and being exactly what they need to be in that given moment. And even though she might not know a lot of the people here because they made that whole stink about like, we don't go to the valley, that's disgusting. But she walked in there like she owned the place. And that's what we love about 3s. They're so great at that. And if you're the kind of person where you're like a little bit more standoffish or shy, go somewhere with a 3 that you're going to be in an environment like that where you don't know people or you would tend to be more reserved. They're totally going to get you out of their shell. They'll have you talking to strangers. You'll be having such a fun time that you'll be like, why did I not want to come in the first place? And I do think Dionne probably has a 4 wing. I think she leans on that a little bit more than the 2, because remember, like I said, she's not so much interested in doing things she doesn't want to do for other people just simply to help them. She's more like, I want to be unique and authentic, and I'm not going to do something that doesn't feel like me. And again, that's really that 4. We talk a lot about 4s on this podcast. So if you're a 4, let me know what you think of Dionne. I think she's so freaking cool. Oh, wait. No, Mo. We got to talk about this. In the scene where she is driving with her boyfriend and Cher, and she's like accidentally going on the freeway. This is hilarious because I had a situation just like this. I'm not quite as tragic, but I was learning how to drive and I was trying to get on the freeway and there was a freaking semi in the lane I needed to merge into. And I just start yelling apparently. And I don't really remember a lot of this. I swear I blocked it out, but my mom reminded me last night and I just happened to be watching this movie and I'm like, what the heck? I had that exact same experience. And so it's hilarious because she was like, danger, this is scary, but she's also trying to keep her cool. And so she's like, it's okay, I got it. But she's also freaking out inside, which was so 3 to me. It was amazing. But again, to round that out, I think Dionne is a 3 wing 4. And I didn't really think too much about her tri type, but let's just live type her together. Okay. So she has a 3, which is obviously in the heart triad. So that's her main type. And then from the head triad, she's probably a 7. And that's probably why she and Cher get along so well. They share that. No pun intended. And then from the gut triad, I think she's probably an 8. She's so funny. She's very abrasive and she can be aggressive when she wants to be, but she's not in that state all the time. So I would say she probably has an 8 from the gut triad, which would make her tri type a 3, 7, 8. So very, very similar to Cher. Oh my gosh, let's talk about Ty. So this one was really funny for me because I was getting a lot of different things. I'm like, what is she? Because in the beginning of the movie, we see her, she comes in and she's kind of like, do, like, I'm a little bit nervous and I don't know what I'm doing here. And we see that Cher really jumps in right away. And so we don't get to see her too much by herself. She's really like in with people right away. And so I decided for her, she's very clueless in this sweet way, and not to like pun on the movie, but she's very like oblivious, and it's not in a way of like ditzy. She's just very sweet and she's just like, I'll just look at it glass half full, which can feel very type 7. But I don't think we see her using the 5 and the 1 that the 7 has a connection to, like I just talked about with Cher. And so for me, I'm like, probably not a 7. She could have a 7 in her tri type though. And then the other thing is that she seems to get really hooked on relationships, and that's sort of where she was deriving some of her status and her worth from at certain times. Not like that she was like that all the time, but we see a couple of times where we find out kind of late in the movie that she's like, oh, I was still holding on to Elton. Like, it's just what? I was like, you would like talk to him for 2 seconds. Like, what is going on? But I think in her heart of hearts, she's just like, but I liked him and he didn't like me. Like, this is really sad. And I think it impacted her more than she let on. And so that is why I gave her the type of a 2. And I think for her, she's so sweet and kind and caring, and she just wants the best, and she just like wants everyone to be happy. And I did decide, like, does she have a 9? And then I ended up choosing the 9, or I'm sorry, I ended up choosing a 2, like I said. But she feels very 9 to 7, and I think that's her tri type. And the 2 at the end of the day is really caring and sweet, and they would be more likely to go along with the whole makeover thing because they're like, I'm making friends, and 2s will do anything for their friends. Like, they are very people focused. And so for her, she sees this as an opportunity to not only get a little makeover, which she's down for, but she also sees it as an opportunity to bond with people. And so that's what she's looking at. She's not like, oh, makeover. She's like, oh my gosh, time to spend with other people. And so obviously she's going to go for it. And we do see that she's kind of quick to leave what she wants in the dust. You know, she obviously is like, oh my gosh, Travis, which I love Travis. He's awesome. But she was like, oh, Cher doesn't really think that he's cool, so I'll leave him behind in order to follow with what Cher wants, which again can sound very type 9, but this is actually something that we see 2s do a lot because again, they're so relationship focused. And so if they feel like that's causing a strain, they'll leave it behind. The other thing that's really hilarious about her, she does have high highs and low lows. And we see that in those relationships. And it's funny because as a 2, they do experience a lot of those feelings. I would say that they're probably the most feelings focused of all of the 3 heart types. Remember, the heart types are type 2s, type 3s, and type 4s. And so I feel like the 2s, they really feel the emotions a lot more. And especially when it comes to relationships and love interests, I think that can be a little bit more of a catalyst for them having the highs and the lows. And so that's something that we definitely see with her. In contrast, remember, I was like, is she a 7 originally? Cher does not have that. Cher is pretty steady with her emotions. She does get kind of like silly and, you know, she can be dramatic, which 7s are very much known for. And they're good at like embellishing stories to make it even more amazing and entertaining. But we don't really see that from her at all. So this is a really interesting contrast between the 7 and the 2, because again, those 2 get mistyped for each other all the time. But this movie is a really great example of why the 2 are so different. And so again, I do think that Ty's tri-type is a 2-9-7. And again, the 9, I kind of explained that before, but she's really good at melding with people. She's good at just kind of merging. She wants to chill and have fun. And she's really good at making her way in groups. Like, she just really fits in nicely. And then, of course, the 7, because she's always down for a fun time. She's very much someone who is interested in feeling the excitement of doing something as much as she is actually doing the thing. So she looks forward to it as much as she enjoys doing it. And then last but not least, let's talk about Josh. So he was so fun for me because the whole time I'm sitting there, like, he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. So I'm having to really look at the nuances here. However, I decided that he is a type 6, and I think he has a 5 wing, but he does lean on his 7 sometimes when he's being witty and like bantering with Cher. But for him, I ended up going with that 6 because at the end of the day, he's focused on his future, and 6s are great at not only applying themselves to their studies, but they really do want to set them up as a security measure, because remember, the 6s love having security. So he's setting himself up, helping with the case with Cher's father in order to feel like, okay, I'm more secure in the fact that I do want to go into law, and this is what it's going to be like, and I'm getting my foot in the door and I'm applying myself. And so he's looking at things more long term, which is something that you'll see the 6 do. And also, he's very much loyal. I mean, we can tell the dynamic is kind of hilarious here because Cher's like, you were kind of my like step brother, but not really. But also, my dad was married to your mom. So it's like this convoluted thing. But he still is very much dedicated to Cher's dad, even though he was only in his life for a little bit of time. And so I feel like, again, it's more focused on loyalty. And so that's what he's acting out of. And so we see that come up more and more as the movie progresses because Cher's like, I need you. I'm stuck in, you know, wherever. I got like kicked out of the car and I was held up, and he leaves whatever he's doing to go get her. But the funny part, unlike a type 5 that would probably leave the girl that he was with, he brings her along because the 6 is like, hey, this will be fine. Like, we can still make this work, whatever. They're trying to problem solve. And so he brings the girl that he was dating or was out on a date with. I don't know who she was, but she was there. Anyways, he brings her along and then he goes to pick up Cher. And so it's funny because he's really just trying to like get the most out of the experience and like not let anyone down, which again is a very six thing. And I feel like the last thing that really solidifies him being a six is at the end of the movie when he's trying to tell Cher that he kind of likes her, but he's also not trying to. I think what he's really trying to do is like suss out, does she really like me or is it just me? But he's trying to tell her, like, yeah, I mean, you're cool and you're beautiful and he's like, oops, did I kind of just say that? But he's really good. He like recovers quickly and he's like, yeah, I did actually, you're not just beautiful, I think you're gorgeous. And so it was just great because he was able to be vulnerable with his feelings for a minute and really get in his heart. And the great thing is the six and the seven together, because remember, Cher's a seven, they work so well together because the six can be really in their head and it can be a little bit taxing for all that white noise to be in there of like different things going on. But the seven is really good at pulling them out and being like, no, focus on the moment, focus on the fun. And I think them together, the banter and the wittiness between the two of them is unmatched. And I think that's why they get along so well. They really meet on that headspace because a lot of times it's like opposites attract. However, here, they're opposite in all the right ways, but they connect in a lot of other great ways that make it so they don't have a whole lot of friction like other couples could. I think the seven and the six are an excellent pair because they really do fill in the gaps the other has, but they're not so different that it'll cause a lot of conflict. And so that's why I think they end up being like, we do like each other. And it was honestly after quite a bit of time too. Initially, they're both like, ew, I don't like you. But they kind of look at it logically and are like, oh, wait a second. We get along really well and we work well together. This makes sense for us. And so I think their relationship really does come out of like thinking through it and being like, wait a second, what are we doing here? I like you like me. Let's make this happen. All right, that's it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed. Be sure and check back on Friday for a brand new episode. And of course, follow along on Instagram at Hey, it's Liv James, because that's where I have all of the really cool Clueless photos that I found for this episode. I found some ones that actually were not part of like the original press photos and whatnot. And so be sure and check it out over there. Of course, we're continuing the Summer Throwback Enneagram series with more fun movies. I have a really, really fun one coming for you on Friday. So be sure and subscribe. And remember, leave a 5-star rating if you're on Apple or Spotify. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.